You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 160. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how life with less alcohol is more fun than you think. I work with high achievers who struggle to drink a glass of wine without it turning into 2 bottles. I'm the one they call when they want to take it or leave it. So if you want to change your relationship with alcohol that doesn't involve counting days sober, you're in the right place. Happy Christmas Eve, everybody. Gosh, I can hardly believe this day has arrived. This is probably one of my most favourite days in the whole year. We will be doing the traditions here in our household, which means a hot smoked salmon fish pie after carols, and we're actually going to go to a bar after we go to carols, and I guess the gang are going to be having mulled wine. I'll be having my San Pellegrino in a wine glass. Love San Pellegrino. Hugely big fan. All right, so before I get going on today's episode, I did want to mention, if I haven't already, that I have a mini program running in January from the 1st to the 31st of January. Yes, getting ahead already. And it is called Coach in Your Pocket, the Dry January edition. So what this comprises, there will be 4 weeks. I'm going to be dropping videos each week. I was planning on dropping 1 video per week, and actually it's multiple videos per week, short ones, so don't worry, to help you through the different elements. And I have the curriculum here. I thought I would just mention that so that you will get the info. So the first week, the topic is managing cravings when the glass of wine has got your name on it. Week 2, we're going to be focusing on remind me why I thought dry January was a good idea. In week 3, I'm going full Britney. The topic will be, oops, I did it again, how to get back on track when you want to throw in the towel. And then week 4, we're going to be digging deep. We're going to be looking at when you are ready to give up. And in fact, since creating this, I'm in the middle of creating the content for this, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm on fire. I think I mentioned I was on fire last week. I'm in this creative zone. I've decided I'm going to add a bonus video section here on life after dry January. Right, so we're going to have all these video components, and there are going to be 2 live coaching calls in the month. This will be where you can come on if you want to come on the big screen and get hot seat coached by me, or where I will answer all of your questions. And of course, there is a wonderful workbook comprising 31 days of journaling entries, inspiration, places for you to capture what's going on, because this is really my goal for this program. This is not about just really just trying to not drink and fighting and battling through. No. This is about getting curious. This is an opportunity to learn about your drinking, learn about your relationship with alcohol, maybe what you want for yourself. This is much more something that will kick off, if you choose to do that, a more permanent relationship with alcohol, rather than battling for 31 days to go dry and then on the 1st of February, drinking as much, if not more than ever. I will put a link in the show notes for this, but you can also email me, anna@90dayslater.co. Now, it is important to take action on this. If this is what you want, this is on a pre-sale, because I like to reward action takers. It's £49. I mean, that's like 4 glasses of wine. Think about that. 4 glasses of wine. I'm offering you a month of all this support. But that price is only valid until the 31st of December at midnight GMT. From the 1st of January, it doubles. It'll be £98, which, by the way, is still a steal. But who wants to pay double? So get in now, 49 quid. And if you can't find the link, if you want this will be all over my Instagram stories and so on. But anna@90dayslater.co is the best place to find it. All right, enough. Let's get on with the show. Now, we are on the 4th, actually I think it's the 5th week, talking about the different ways that we handle cravings. And today we're talking about the scientist. And This is really the one that if you're here already, that's great. If you find that you are identifying more with being baffled or a fighter or maybe even a little bit of the narrator, then listen up, because the scientist is really the one that I would encourage you to move to. And this is ironic coming from me because I am the least scientific person in the family. But there you go. Because I think the scientist mindset here is about, if you think about a scientist, they're looking for what's going on, they're putting forward hypotheses, and they're experimenting, and they're seeing what works, and they're not kind of wedded to one answer. And that's really kind of light, right? It gives me a light feeling, and that's really a very, very helpful way to view cravings. So in today's episode, we're going to explore what that means if you were to approach your cravings like a scientist, and why curiosity can be the best tool, and how to start using any analytical skills you have. Yes, you have them. If I have them, then so do you. So let's dive in. All right. So the scientist mindset is all about looking at cravings through this lens of curiosity and observation, right? Instead of simply reacting to the craving or getting overwhelmed by it, someone who has a more scientist mindset, they will gather data, right? We will say, what's happening here? Why is it that I feel this way in this scenario? Why is it when that person says this happens, right? We're not judging, we're just gathering the facts and the figures. And then we're going to evaluate this, test different approaches to see what works best to create a solution that we want. Now, you might find yourself analyzing patterns. You might already know this. You might already be doing this. You just might not be thinking of it in these ways. Maybe you notice that cravings tend to show up at a certain time of day. Or maybe you find yourself, you're thinking you're going to go and meet your sister-in-law and it's like, oh, I know I always drink when I'm with her, because of whatever reason. You might not know the reason, but you might think, yeah, that's going to be a trigger point. That's how we talk about them. Well, once you spot these patterns, and I would encourage you to write these down, and you'll have probably quite a few. You're bound to have one or two that are more the dominant ones, but write them down. And then I want you to start asking why you think these are happening. The example I gave just now is if you're going to go around and sit with your sister-in-law, maybe you don't really get on with her. I mean, maybe it's just not something you'd rather not do, but you kind of feel obliged. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? That then you would maybe want to drink to get through that situation. Not that you have to, but we can start to understand why. And then we want to see, what could I try? Right, I'm going to my sister-in-law. I know it's going to happen. I know I normally have a drink then, or I have a couple of glasses of wine for whatever reason, right? Because I feel I just don't really like her, don't really know what to say. What could you do differently? What would be a little experiment you could try, right? And this is really, we're not on here, I'm not talking about controlling that other person, but this is about experimenting with your own behavior, right? How could you choose to show up differently? And then we want to use that data to figure out, did that work? Was that better? Was it not so good? What else could you try? And so that we've worked out then the most effective way to get through, right? To decide what you want in that situation. So before we do that, let's break down the pros and cons of having a scientist mindset. Well, really the biggest strength is this feeling that I think is imbued with scientists. In fact, my husband is a mathematician scientist, and he is always asking questions. How does that work? Why is that so? What about this? I mean, it's part of who he is. And I think if we can really take that mantle on, we would get so many more answers. I mean, can you see it's a much more powerful place than to sit there thinking, well, I'm always going to drink. I come from a family of heavy drinkers. I've always done this, where we're kind of in a dead end road situation. Whereas if we're asking questions, we're looking for possible solutions. If you're doing this, you're going to be wondering why a craving is happening. You're going to be looking at your reactions like they're a puzzle to solve. And it's going to give you clarity about your habits, about the triggers, and about various emotional states, right? How you might be feeling. Are you always feeling the same when you at 6 o'clock, when the trigger happens or whatever? You start to really ask these questions. This is a test and learn approach. Right? Scientists think about it. They don't take things at face value. You can tell them this is how it is, but they're not going to take that. They're going to test, they're going to analyze, they're going to adjust based on what they learn. Right? Doing this, taking this approach allows you to refine your strategies over time. This is why I often say that whatever we put on a drink plan, whatever the number is just a number. We can have all sorts of different thoughts about it. 2 is not necessarily any different than 4. I mean, 4 might be, hugely wonderful to one person and 2 to somebody else. It depends where we're coming from. It depends how we're thinking about them. So understanding how we're thinking is huge when it comes to rewriting, reframing our relationship with alcohol. Another great pro around the scientist mindset, I think, is that there's no guilt. I mean, really, there's no guilt. It's very right down the middle. It's not right or wrong. There's just no guilt. When you approach cravings analytically, you're going to detach yourself from the guilt and shame. You automatically will do that. It's just what happens. And instead of berating yourself or beating yourself up for giving into a craving, you're going to see it as valuable data. Valuable data that's going to help you improve. This podcast is coming out on Christmas Eve. People, this is the best time of year to learn about why you drink and about what's going on, right? Because there's going to be so much happening, so many parties, so much temptation, so much everywhere. By the way, all of that, ways to handle that is in my holiday season survival kit. If you want that, that's on sale. I think you can find that on my Instagram. But really, this is a great opportunity to go out there into the wild and really understand what's going on. There are some cons that come from the scientist mindset that I want you to just be aware of. Overthinking is one, right? One potential downside is that there's this risk of overthinking with all the data and collection and analysis. It can become easy to kind of get lost in that process and get caught up in trying to figure out every single factor that is contributing to a craving. So we spend more time analyzing than we spend doing. So be aware of that, which sort of leads into analysis paralysis, right? You're probably familiar with that. I don't know what to do, and I'm just going to carry on gathering more data. It becomes so focused on testing and tracking that we don't really move quickly enough. And this, I always say, is one of the great things. If you're a daily drinker in particular, where every new day you've got an opportunity. You don't have to wait until the weather is a certain temperature or this other thing's happening. If you're a daily drinker, then that next day at 6 o'clock or whatever your habit is, you're going to want it, right? So you get another opportunity to try. But if you don't move quickly enough, if you don't take these opportunities, you're going to have missed opportunities to address cravings, right? In the moment, you're just basically delaying the learnings, delaying the experience. But overall, I would say the scientist mindset can be incredibly empowering because it allows you to approach cravings, as I said, with curiosity instead of frustration. I alluded to this earlier, but why curiosity sits in a scientist mindset, if you're very much of this way, is that it's all about questions, right? We're going to be asking questions. Why am I craving this? What's going on emotionally for me? What's going on physically for me? What's happening? Why is this happening now? Right? Instead of feeling overwhelmed or helpless, when we are curious, that opens the door for exploration and experimentation. I've said this so many times. Our brains love to answer questions. Set it a task and it'll go off and get the data. It'll get the information for you. Other questions you can ask: is this craving connected to stress? Is it connected to boredom? What emotion is it connected to? What was going on earlier today that might have triggered me? What was going on? What is this telling me? What is going on here? Right? What happens if I try this other thing instead of drinking? What happens if here's a real life one for me. Somebody I was working with a good while ago would go into the kitchen and reach for the white wine in the fridge, and what we did was, one of the many things we did was to have her walk a different way around the kitchen. Go figure, right? Walk a different way around the island and the kitchen. And that meant that going to the fridge became less of an automatic response. I mean, she would still go for the fridge, but it was like thinking about it, right? So that was just playing with what other things could I try. Again, it's about being curious about your own behavior. You will get profound insight into your habits. There will be, you can come up with, again, so much data. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. Just pick one thing. right? Get curious about one thing and then try something new out. Start by, so how you do this is we're going to observe the craving. So start by paying attention to when the cravings rise. What are the circumstances? What are the neutral circumstances? The time of day. What emotions are you feeling? Is there a specific trigger? Are you with someone? Has somebody said something? Is it something you see? Is it something you smell? And then once you've noticed that pattern, make a hypothesis about why you might be tempted to, what might be going on behind. For instance, probably if I was a top 10, I should do that, right? Top 10 reasons why we drink too much, and just wanting to unwind at the end of the day. It's like I have the glass and boom, I'm unwinding. That, just that in itself, just being aware of that. And you might think, yeah, I know that now, but just think about that. If you do want to unwind, does it not make sense that if you've taught yourself to have the wine, that you're going to want the wine? Yes. Right? So we're not judging. So what else could we do instead at that time? Experiment. Try out a different response. See if it has a different impact on the craving. I mentioned just now walking a different way around a kitchen. You will be amazed. Could be just always having a glass of water first, right? Whatever happens, whatever's on your plan, you're going to have a glass of water first. Maybe you need to do a little bit of stretching. Maybe you find that actually if you can get into the habit of having a herbal tea because it is delicious. I love peppermint tea. I mean, I really feel refreshed, and it's just, I can feel the vibrancy, is that a word? Going through my body. I love peppermint tea, just like I love San Pellegrino. So, try these different things out. And then after you've tested a few different things, evaluate what worked and what didn't. And I've talked about evaluations before on the podcast, right? Simply ask what worked, what didn't work, and what would I do differently. And then you refine and you repeat it, right? Try something else again. Learn from it. What worked, what didn't, what would I do differently? And just keep moving and keep changing. I want you to see how much energy you would feel and how differently you'd feel about yourself if you were to do that, rather than sitting there saying, well, here I go again. Never going to change. I'd love to drink differently, but that's just not for me. I'm just one of those people. I just want you to see the different energy behind this level of curiosity versus, I just came out this way. It's like they made me in a factory and I'm this kind of drinker. No, no. Now, the really beautiful thing, I think, about this more scientific mindset is it's not just about understanding your cravings in the moment. This is a tool for long-term behavior change. You can use this, by the way, in any area of your life. As you gather data over time, you're going to start to learn more about yourself, more about patterns. Your patterns are going to change, right? The situation is you're going to be changing your neural networks, and they will change, and then that means you then have a new situation, new data to gather, new way of looking at it, right? As we start just to make small micro changes, and you'll begin to see the root causes of your cravings and start addressing them more effectively. This is also, by the way, where if you were to do this, you're going to avoid the scenario of sort of habit swapping that I read about a lot in a lot of the Facebook groups, where I'm really giving up the booze, but my word, I'm eating all the sugar, right? We don't want to do that. So this will avoid that. And this data-driven approach is going to help you be more intentional, replacing reactive behaviors with conscious, well-tested responses. And if you're like me, if you feel a bit cold at the idea of data-driven and factual, and it's like, it sounds a bit, I want to just rest in the evening. I don't want to go into data. I just want you to look at what the upside is. What are you getting out of this? And this is really about learning about yourself. So maybe frame it in that way if you're finding you're reacting negatively to the idea of a data-driven approach. Okay, so a few practical tips I'm just going to list out here so it's easy, a nice little easy summary. Firstly, observe and record. Keep a track of when your cravings happen, how you feel and what you were doing at the time, any information around them. Write it down in your journal, in your phone. It's going to help you identify patterns. This is going to be one of the things we're going to be working on together in the Dry January mini program. When you have this data, make hypotheses. Don't just accept the cravings at face value, right? What we see is, I just feel like a drink right now. What we don't see is, I'm feeling like a drink right now because I just need to get the weight off my feet, right? because I've been on my feet all day. Maybe you work in a job where you're on your feet all day and you literally want to put your feet up. So learn from this, right? Find out what's happening, what's causing your desire for the drink. Could it be stress? Could it be habit? Or could it be something else? I want you to test new strategies, experiment. The more you test, the more you learn. You can go wacky. Yeah, doesn't have to be boring. Make this a game. I'm going to try 5 new approaches this week. I love games. If I gamify things, that's a new word for me recently. Showing my age and not knowing what that meant, but this can make it fun. And then I want you to evaluate and adjust, right? So we're not just throwing new approaches out there and then not doing anything with them. No. We need to circle back. Did that work? Did I enjoy it? Is that something I'm willing to do? Right? What change did I notice? And maybe, give something a few tries. Don't just try something once. Then, think that's it. If you wanted to ride this unicycle, think how many times you'd have to fall over if you were to master the unicycle. One of my children had one years ago. Gosh, I can't even, the idea is horrifying to me. Probably take me months, right? So you've got years of experience of drinking. This could take a little while to experiment, but it doesn't have to be a bane. All right, that's it for today. I hope I have encouraged you to see that have a more scientific, curious, open, data-driven, analytical, or sort of more behavioral science perspective is going to stand you in huge stead as you go through and change your relationship with alcohol. And as we're coming to the end here, and we have Christmas tomorrow, I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. And remember, you do not have to overdrink to have a good time. Right, go back and listen. Treat yourself. Here's my little Christmas present to you. Go back and listen to a couple of your favorite episodes. Maybe an episode I have on cravings. Maybe the one of the first ones, why you desire drink, or the one of the probably actually the most popular one. It's easier to not drink than it is to stop once I start. Right, so go back and have a little listen. Prepare yourself mentally for this. You can do this. You can have a wonderful time without having all the hangovers. And if you do want to coach with me one-on-one, I do a 6-month personalized program and I have spots available. I have spots available at the 2024 price. If you want one of these, contact me, anna@90dayslater.co. The first thing we'll have a free call. So schedule your free call now. If you schedule your free call, even if it's for January, I will grant you the 2024 price. For anybody who contacts me after the 1st of January, the price has gone up. So if you want this, make this your Christmas present to yourself. You will love yourself. You will thank yourself. This will pay dividends for the future so much. And in the words of one of my clients, I'm going to paraphrase her here, because she was drinking so much less very quickly after we started working together, the amount she paid me, which she was actually quids in, because she just wasn't spending the money on alcohol. She spent it on me, and then when we stopped working, she wasn't spending it at all. I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around, and they don't miss out on life. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.